Hello. My name is Shane Brodie, and I'm traveling around the country talking to trans people, non-binary, gender non-conforming, agender, intersex, etc. people. And today I am in a... Are we in the Midwest or are we in the Great Plains?
We are in the Midwest.
Okay, we're in the Midwest. Yep. We're almost in the Great Plains, though. I can feel it coming. I'm going there soon.
We're on the upper edge.
Okay, on the upper edge. And it's very hot out today. And I know I keep complaining about that, but oh my goodness. I'm just so sweaty. Thank you for tolerating that, by the way.
It's no problem. It's inevitable here in the heat.
Yes. We smell like men. Anyway, so my guest is going to introduce himself now.
My name is Grant, and I live in Omaha, have been my entire life, and I'm a transgender man.
Yeah. I've been driving around Omaha the last couple days, and I'm very surprised about it. Actually, I didn't realize that it was like this, that there was a lot of trees here. I thought it was just going to be grassland and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's actually a really busy place, too.
Surprisingly so.
Why is that?
We like to describe it oftentimes as a small town with a big city.
Yeah.
Like space.
Yeah.
So it's small town mentality. Everyone knows each other. Everyone is like in each other's business.
What's the population here?
I think it's just under 500,000.
Oh, so it's pretty big.
It is pretty big.
That's like 10 times the size of Fairbanks.
Yeah, but the communities are all like very tightly knit.
Okay.
So if you are in one community, everyone there knows each other.
Okay.
And if you're adjacent to another one, then you probably know everyone in that group. And
okay.
It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but it's Omaha.
Okay. Okay. Is there any relationship between Omaha and Lincoln, which is not too far away, right?
It's not far. I mean, kind of. We have the University of Omaha and we have University of Lincoln, which are technically connected just in different cities.
Yes.
Like it's the same educational system.
Right. There aren't a lot of universities out here.
There's a surprising amount, all things considered, because we have like Metropolitan Community College here, Creighton University, UNO, and then there's a couple of like smaller community colleges as well. Weirdly enough,
that is a lot. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking about like Iowa. There's so many.
Yeah.
As you go eastward, it's just like it's almost too much, and just a lot.
There's so many.
Not too much, but a lot. Anyway.
Yeah.
So tell me more. Tell me more about that.
Well,
the busyness.
Omaha is like a hub. There's a lot of things that come through here. It's a major trucking route. It's a major airport hub. We have a lot of layovers, and it's actually surprisingly, we have a very large immigrant population.
Oh, really? Okay. I did meet a Southeast Asian guy last night. Yeah. When I got stuck with my car, I had a little car trouble last night. He was super sweet, and I could tell he was very new, recent immigrant.
Yeah, we actually have a lot of immigrants from Southeast Asia. Yeah. That's like, I think one of our biggest immigrant populations is like from that general area of the world. And it's just, I think it's because of cost of living and, like...
Are there like refugee resettlement programs here?
I think there's one, maybe. There's honestly not many, but there are a lot of refugees that end up here because of like the way it's laid out and like housing availability and things of that nature. Yeah. And like a lot of landlords here are like private landlords, so you don't have to worry about rental companies and credit checks and things of that nature quite as much.
Yeah. I used to live in Minnesota, and there's a lot of Hmong people and Somali people, and they're brought over by people who... organizations that specifically resettle refugees, which is really great. Yeah.
I think
Minnesota welcomes them in.
Yeah. Omaha's pretty welcoming for like refugees and immigrants in general. It's like weirdly segregated. So a lot of the immigrant populations tend to stay in the same areas of town. And like once you get past about like 90th Street, it becomes very white.
Oh yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah. Like aggressively so.
Suddenly it was like all those cookie cutter kind of houses, and like it's hard to navigate even with your car because it's everything kind of looks alike.
Oh yeah. It's so hard to find your way around because everything just looks exactly the same. But down here where it's more established, this is like old Omaha.
Yes.
So people took so much time moving out of this old area into the new constructions out west that a lot of this opened up for really cheap. So a lot of the immigrant populations and like the black population in the town ended up in this area of town. So it's like, it's a lot more diverse.
I noticed when I believe I drove through the downtown area, which is not too far away or something.
Yeah, it's just down that way.
Yeah, and I was surprised at it. It was like, it felt like old Wild West kind of facades, but then painted with graffiti murals and kind of some like modern wildness. Yeah. I was like, wow, this is quite a juxtaposition. Because if you just took the paint off, it would be like you're here 100 years ago or something.
Yeah, that's probably Benson that you drove through, or Dundee, because those are old neighborhoods.
Yeah, it was very old looking.
Yeah, like back when Omaha was first built, those were considered like out west. Those were like the edges of the city. That's where all the rich people live. That's why you have the like those kind of storefronts and like really big houses and stuff like that. That's been there for a century. Okay. Because that's like, that used to be the rich area of town, and then it just kept expanding and they kept moving west. Okay. Yeah. But I thought it was so cute that it was like this, it was a mashup of like Wild West and like, street urban culture, like with graffiti and stuff. It was, vaping stores and exactly. I was like, wow. Yeah. Oh, speaking of that, is that legal here, vaping and that sort of thing, or? CBD is legal, so that's legal on a federal level, but like weed in general is. Okay. Our governor is a mess. Honestly.
Well, it's interesting though, because traveling through kind of these red states, it's kind of like this checkerboard. Of legalities, like some places it's legal, some places it's some aspect of it, like you're saying CBD, or it's medical only, or something like that. So you have to watch out for jurisdictions if you're near the border. Yes, which you're near a border.
Yes, we are, and there have been a lot of like vape shops and dispensaries pop up lately, and it's just for CBD stuff. But we've had at least like 3 open here in the last year, which is incredibly surprising because we have a pretty widespread like local dealer sort of thing for the things that are not as so people find their ways to get things, and we're so close to Colorado, and
and it's legal there or whatever. I don't smoke weed, but I just think it's or do anything like that. I just don't. But I think it's interesting how it's like different, and it's all over, and actually one of the most conservative places I've been, which is Oklahoma. There were those shops everywhere. Like almost every block, it was like, oh, there's another one. I don't know. It was just interesting. Yeah. Anyway, getting off of that topic and on to what this is about. So how would you personally identify in terms of, like being trans and all that?
I identify as a trans male.
Okay.
It's been a recent journey.
Okay.
I only started questioning my gender when I was about, I'm 33 now, so 24 years ago is when I first started thinking something's up. I don't think I'm quite the way I thought I was for the entirety of my life. Okay. Right? So.
And how did you identify before?
I identified as a bisexual woman. Okay. For about 28 years.
And is there a bisexual community here?
Not as much.
Okay. It's hard to find bisexual communities.
It is. There is, unfortunately. I mean, there's like the general biphobia that happens, right? But it is especially rampant. I feel like in these like more red states, more like Great Plains, Midwest sort of thing. Most of...
Are you talking about biphobia from the greater queer trans community or from the cis-het community?
Kind of both.
Both, okay.
It's pretty aggressive, the whole like concept of like bi women being this unicorn for couples sort of thing is very aggressive in the Midwest.
So and it's a little bit behind the times.
Yes. Okay. Like, bi women are chased by straight men because they're more likely to be, open to trying new things with multiple people. And,
that might be true, but that's, that might be true for any person.
Exactly.
Not just bi people.
Exactly. But even within like the queer community here, there's a lot of push specifically around the word like bisexual, that like if you like more than just men and women, you have to be pansexual. You're not bisexual, you're pansexual.
So people are policing language.
There's a lot of that here, and I think it's just because we have like this weird gap in our community where there's a lot of us who are on the upper end of 25, like 25 and above. So like,
how can I ask how old are you?
Yeah, I'm 33.
Okay, all right.
So there's a lot of us.
It's sometimes really hard to tell.
Yeah, I've always looked like really young for my age too. So
right.
there's a lot of us older queer people who use the terms that like we've been using for years, right? Because I've identified as bisexual for pretty much as long as I can remember at this point, and there
is a history behind it. And
exactly.
Yeah.
And like I don't. There were times where I went through like maybe I'm pan, maybe like when I first started to question my gender and my sexuality, I'm like maybe I'm a lesbian, and like I went through a cycle of things, but I came back to bisexual in the end of it because it's what feels true. Yeah. But there's us older queers in the community, and then there is like the crop of young queers up and coming out proud, which I love. I love to see it.
It's
it
so
makes
interesting.
me so happy.
It's so interesting because I think of you as being a young queer. I'm like, but you know,
yeah. I'm in that weird middle spot.
It's relative. Anyway, so you're talking about like late teens to early 20s. Yeah.
Once they kind of hit college age, they calm down about it a little bit more.
Okay.
But especially in like the teenagers, because you know you have a lot more access via internet and social media, and more access to more queer community and more terms and discourse, and you know how kids are.
Actually, I don't. But I remember when I was that age and everything was really kind of fraught, and you know I was establishing my my ideas about things, and it was kind of there was a hardness to some of what I was doing.
It's kind of black and white at that age. It's like it is this way until you learn something new, and then it's like, oh, maybe it's not. Yeah. Like I see some of my old like Facebook posts from a decade ago, and I'm like, yikes. Okay, you need to chill.
Well, as a lot of people my age, or maybe even a little younger, but definitely older, we're all glad that the internet wasn't around, because you know we were kind of wild, or we made lots of mistakes. So you know, I feel for people who are younger now, because it's almost like their lives are very, very public. And their mistakes, and you know, the foibles. I mean, we all go through these things. You know, we all make mistakes, and you know, change our minds.
It's hard though when it's so just out there for everyone to see. Right.
Like, and people dig up stuff, and they're like, look what a dummy you were, or whatever. You know, come on.
The nitpicking.
Weren't we all like that? Come on.
Give people a little bit of grace, man. They're human.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's cool that you still, you know, maintain that identity. And I'm going to say pansexual actually, and for people who don't know this, it doesn't come out of the queer community. Yeah. It doesn't. It comes actually from the straight community that was opening up to more queerness. So for those people who want to be really stringent about that, a lot of people don't identify with that word because of that. Like I don't really identify with that word. I'm more queer.
Yeah, that's the other one I used to identify myself. Like I tend to use bisexual for straight people, for the cisheads.
Yeah, it's easy
because it's just
very easy.
It's easier, but for like my people in the community, I just say I'm queer because it encompasses everything. Yeah,
and it can be not to say that bisexual is not diverse, but it's very clear. Whereas queer is lovely and messy, and you know it can encompass a lot of things.
Exactly. Like people expect one thing from bisexual.
Yeah. Although it can be many things.
Than that, but like people have such an expectation around it. Yeah. That it's like I just use it for certain communities that it's easier to explain.
Yeah.
Like,
well, some people call that code switching. Like you're around different people, you talk in a different way.
Yes.
You know?
That's exactly it.
Actually, you know, I was talking about my car breaking down, and you were very helpful with that, by the way. It was nice to just, you know, connect with somebody local, because I was in a panic about my car. And the garage you hooked me up with was great. But I felt the need for some reason, and I'm not sure why this is, to butch myself up.
Oh, yeah.
When I was talking to people out in the world yesterday, which is so strange for me, because I have been out as a queer person since, I was a teenager.
Right.
And I'm in my 50s.
Right.
So it was a little bit frightening to have those thoughts go in my head that, I need to butch myself up because maybe people will treat me badly out here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever experience that? Because you are very visibly queer.
Yes.
Something fabulous is going on here.
Yeah, it is. I can't hide it.
No.
For the life of me. Not even if I wanted to. And I don't want to. But like,
it's all in everything right here.
Yeah. I do find myself trying to code switch more in public and like hold myself a certain way and talk a certain way and like make sure that I'm attempting to drop my voice more and not like gesturing so much or like sometimes the way that I dress like more like straight man which I don't look straight for the life of me. I can't for the life of me look straight if I wanted to.
what would a straight man look more like, do you think, for you? What would that drag look like?
For me, that drag is work boots, boot cut jeans, like a flannel or just like a regular t-shirt.
So covering up your tattoos a little?
Or? A little bit more. Usually this one, because this is the one that people are like, men in colorful tattoos.
Okay.
What, like,
it looks like a lotus. Is it a lotus?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one's pretty old at this point. Or like, not wearing, sometimes I wear like just the one earring right on the one side. So like, none of that. Like, I might like take my necklace off. I might
that
like,
used to be gay code, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, wearing just an earring, it was like gay code. Yeah.
I wear hankies in my back pocket. Like
I did notice that.
Hanky code a lot. Yep.
Is that just a fashion statement, or are you actually?
It's a little bit of both. I stick to colors that I actually like identify with for the most part.
Sure.
So like, there's a couple of extra ones that I don't really like personally identify with that I wear just because I like the colors. But I try and stick to ones especially if I know I'm like going out. So I'm like, so I'm not leading anyone astray, just in case.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. I was once hanging out with I don't know, maybe they were leftists or anarchists or something, and they weren't really connected with the queer community. And this one guy was wearing just a hanky down low as kind of a fashion kind of thing or something.
Right.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. My dog has the cat toys here. I know, this is very tempting. I know it, buddy. And he was wearing like I don't know, it was like a light brown or beige hanky or something like that. And I was like, okay.
I don't think it means what you think it means.
You don't want to go hanging down by the triangle area tonight, you know. Anyway, you know, this is just my assumption. Like, if I were to see you on the street, I would think, oh, there's a gay man. Right. You know, I'd be like, wow, cool. That's great. You know, out here in Omaha. Yeah. Do you hang out with that community at all here in Omaha?
Not as much. Okay. Because I'm a single parent.
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot of time or energy, honestly, because my kid is 6 and it's just...
Yes. I saw some very nice little drawings earlier, which were awesome. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that dominates a lot of my time. Yes. When I do spend time within like the queer community socially, I tend to gravitate towards queer and trans focused spaces.
Or like specific events, like an art event or something like that.
Exactly. Something where I'm going to feel like I'm around my people.
Are you an artist, by the way?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was getting that vibe off you.
Yeah. I dabble in a lot of things.
Okay. So you're multimedia.
Yeah, I do a little bit of watercolor, mostly fiber arts, actually.
Oh, awesome.
I knit and crochet, and I sew a little bit. I do embroidery, that sort of stuff.
I do the stuff leading up to that. Like, I like to process wool and card and spin and plate, you know, ply. Yeah, I love doing all that stuff.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to get into for a long time, but I just haven't had, like, you know, time and money and space.
Sure, yeah. I know. Once you get in, it's like, oh, I need this little thing and that. And,
yeah, the yarn stash is out of control at this point. Like.
Yeah, I know people with entire like rooms full of like a loom.
Yeah,
you know. Yeah,
yeah, that kind of stuff is so cool.
Yeah,
yeah. So if I'm gonna hang out with the queer community, I tend to gravitate towards spaces like that because I know I'll find other people like me, right?
Yeah.
I think in
like other artists, other kind of people who are kind of in between communities.
Yeah, kind of like the fluid folk. Like that's my people. That's the people I prefer to be around. And
that's the people I like too.
Yeah. Like I think in cis gay male spaces, I tend to get really uncomfortable. Mostly socially, because I feel like a lot of times they're speaking a code that I don't understand, or like there's social cues that I don't understand, both from a gay community standpoint and from a cis male standpoint, because I wasn't socialized as a boy growing up. I was socialized as a girl.
And you are kind of new to living as a man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually only been out as a trans man for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Like it's very recent.
Yeah, that's like nothing.
Yeah. It is a blip.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Is that when you started taking testosterone, or?
Yeah, I've been on T for about 2.5 years at this point.
Okay.
So
when you're in those gay male spaces, do you find that it's just very binary, or overly masculine, or I don't know. I don't know what it's like here.
Yeah.
So
I think I feel like a lot of social pressure.
Okay.
And I think it revolves a lot around like the archetypes within the community.
Okay.
Because I find that cis gay males look at me and assume that I'm closer to being a twink than anything else.
Yes.
And I'm like,
yeah.
No.
Right. And you're a parent.
Right.
And you're a lot older than
right.
a twink.
They assume like I'm in my early 20s. I'm
right.
like, no, I'm in my like mid 30s at this point.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I am not like.
Speaking of that, just in general, looking younger and whatnot, but beyond, gay male spaces or whatever, do you ever feel that looking young can be kind of a deficit in a way? Like people don't treat you with the respect that you're due for somebody who's in their mid 30s?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Before I transitioned.
Yeah.
All the time, I would in my mid to late 20s, people would ask me like what school I went to.
Oh, like high school or something?
Like sometimes like high school, like, oh, you're a senior, right? What school do you go to? I'm like, no, I have a child.
Right. Yeah.
I haven't been in high school for like 7 years at this point. Like,
right. Yeah.
And that's rolled over. I think T has helped a lot with that in making me look older and closer to my age. Good. Maybe not like 33, but like late 20s maybe. Like mid 20s. Yeah,
you have a little bit of receding hair, just a little bit.
The facial hair helps a lot.
Right. Did you get more muscular too?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I was absolutely thrilled about that.
Did you have to work out, or did it just
not
happen?
as much?
Yeah, you lucky. You lucky.
It was one of those like, oh my god, I weigh more than 100 pounds now.
Oh,
yes! Like I was just thrilled. I had a long history.
So
of,
you were little, like really thin.
Yeah, really petite. Which has been like a thing for me my entire life, like people commenting on it and like just assuming things about me based on my size and the way I look.
Or finding clothing, I would think.
Difficult.
Yeah.
And continues to be difficult now that I'm wearing like men's clothing and it's finding pants that are short enough.
Right. Well, that's ubiquitous, right? Oh my goodness. Yeah. I met a fella who was like, yeah, I'm starting to learn how to sew and,
oh yeah,
do all my pants and stuff. And I was like,
yeah. Let me get your number.
Yeah. help me out, friend.
Yeah, it's such a nightmare sometimes, and I'm primarily like shop at thrift stores and stuff too. So I'm like trolling a section of men's shirts about this big, just like hoping I find something that might fit.
Sure.
That doesn't hang off of me like a sack.
Right. Because it can. For me, if I'm wearing something that looks big, I feel like I'm wearing daddy's clothes.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel younger and slovenly and not confident.
It feels like infantilizing.
Yeah.
For me, like I feel like I'm right back into like my first forays into wearing men's clothes, where I'm like,
totally.
Like I don't know what I'm doing.
I used to steal my dad's shirts.
Yeah.
And wear them.
Yeah.
And that's
exactly.
what it makes me feel like, which can be nostalgic, but not when you're
not always
40s
though.
and 50s.
Exactly. Like I am a whole adult.
That's right.
I am an entire adult.
That's right.
I don't want to feel like I'm a child wearing my father's clothing.
That's right.
Right?
Although I must say, I have noticed online, and I don't know why I'm getting these ads. There must be, how you get ads because they're reading your mind or something?
Yep.
But it's all like clothing for short dudes,
Yes.
Yes. How about short fat dudes though? There's never any of that. It's always like,
The ones that crack me up is I did some shopping a while back for a show that I danced in because I'm a burlesque dancer by here and there when I have time now. It used to be way more before I transitioned.
Was that like a drag thing or?
A little bit. I started in like classic burlesque back in my early 20s before I transitioned. Then I took a very long break and I recently got back into it.
Tell me about that.
Oh man.
Please.
Burlesque is honestly, like one of my
Because
first...
I have an image of what burlesque is.
Right.
And that is like a very buxom, cisgendered woman.
Right. Right. That's
Yeah.
like the classic burlesque, right? You
Yes.
think of like Dita Von Teese and like the pinup and the,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
with the tassels and the corset and the kitten heels and that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
And that's how I started.
Okay.
Was doing that kind of burlesque,
Okay.
which was weirdly difficult because I have always had a very small chest,
Yes.
even before transition. Like,
Yes.
and it was like a constant source of, I mean, now looking at it, it's a constant source of dysphoria to constantly be pointed out that I have to like pad my bra and like try and push up something that's not there.
That's so interesting.
And it was awful. And I didn't understand for the longest time why I didn't feel good about it. I thought it was just insecurity, you know, and that came to light a few years later.
You know, that's so interesting to me because I'm from the opposite end, right? I
Yeah.
had large breasts for someone so small.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting that we had the same kind of thing. You know, the same thoughts.
Yeah,
or
it's just the
whatever.
other side of the
Yeah,
coin, right?
yeah.
It's like similar source to
Yeah.
the thoughts, just opposite ends.
Right.
And like,
I can tell it's like a sore spot for you. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry if I'm bringing that up.
no,
too
no,
much.
it's okay.
Yeah.
No, not
Yeah.
at all.
Okay.
It's something that I've like learned to live with because I haven't had any surgeries or anything like that. I just, because, you know, healthcare and time and money and it's
Yes.
a lot. And
Right.
I've learned that I'm actually pretty comfortable with my chest the way it is.
Okay, great.
And it's still hard sometimes, you know, like
yeah,
all
yeah,
that
yeah.
old stuff from pre-transition, all the old feelings of, you know, shame and like people making a point to point it out to me and like not always make fun of me for it, but like make sure that I knew it like
right.
wasn't normal. And
Right,
it's
right.
like it's weird and
Yeah.
like don't you want to fix that? Don't you think you want to do something about that? And
Right.
like,
Do people ever think that you have like gynecomastia?
I haven't gotten that.
Okay. You know, because sometimes men who have difference in hormones, endogenous hormones,
Right.
or maybe they've, I don't know if this is an urban myth, but have been smoking pot for a really long time or something like that. Sometimes they
Yeah.
will have some chest.
Yeah, I've never gotten mistaken
No.
for that. Just as of last year, I started like going shirtless in public occasionally.
Oh, awesome. Wow.
Mostly in Denver when
Okay.
I go to visit
Okay.
my partner.
Is this at like queer events too, or no?
And I was at a hot springs,
Ooh.
and I just couldn't fathom the idea of wearing
Wow.
a shirt. So I
That's
took it off,
awesome.
and no one said anything. No one even looked twice, and I had like
Wow.
this sudden brainwave of like, people don't even like,
Yeah.
people don't care.
Yeah.
No one's noticing. Like it's,
Yeah.
my chest is flat enough that no one's even clocking me.
Yeah,
And I was
yeah.
like, hallelujah.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled about this.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I don't feel as comfortable doing that here in Omaha, though.
Okay. Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
it's the difference in
think,
culture.
I think Colorado. When I think of Colorado, I think of a more cosmopolitan place.
Exactly.
Because Denver is really a massive city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the community out there is much more, like, visible than
Yeah.
it is here in Omaha. So I haven't gotten the courage to do it here in Omaha yet.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
like,
I can tell why. I mean, it's just so different.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, everybody kind of knows each other. So
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't have much privacy, I would think.
No, I haven't had a whole lot of privacy in my transition in general here in Omaha.
Oh.
Like, too many people know.
Oh, okay. So people talk.
Yes, people
Okay.
absolutely talk.
What do they say? Like, are they just surprised? Like, oh, that guy, you know, don't you know?
Kinda, yeah.
Okay.
90% of the time, the Midwest kind of has a general attitude of live and let live.
Yeah.
Surprisingly so.
Yeah,
like, for
sure.
a red state, we're pretty chill.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
which is
people just
really
want to go
nice.
home and watch TV or
Yeah,
whatever.
we really don't.
Yeah.
We really don't care
Yeah.
when it comes down to it, right? So, 90% of the people who have found out that I'm trans or that I transitioned, I changed my name or changed my pronouns or something like that, have been like, "All right, cool,"
Okay.
and like really chill about it.
Great. Great.
The only problem I run into is when people are like, "Oh, let me tell other people for you."
Oh,
Like, no, I need you to not,
Oh, no.
because that's not your information to share with people.
Right.
Like,
I always wonder about people like that. Like, if they
Yeah.
think they're doing a good thing or if they just can't help themselves. I don't know.
I know
It's weird.
a few people are like, I know a trans person. Let me like that sort of like, you know, I'm an ally. Let me show to you that I am by here's
By
here's
outing
these trans people I
somebody.
know. Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Look at what a good ally I am.
Let me tell you about these trans people I know.
Yes.
Okay.
That is not being an ally, yo.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
surprisingly enough, no one, very few people. There's only been like a couple of people who have actually.
I'm just like screaming in my head.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
It is so incredibly frustrating. Yeah. Like, I've had to have that conversation with several people. Like, stop telling people.
Yeah.
I know that they know me and they know you.
Yeah.
And it's like a small circle,
it's
it's
not relevant information either.
Exactly. If they find out, great.
Yeah.
They can come talk to me about it. If not, it's none of their business.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like a preamble or something.
Yeah.
Hi, look.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm a trans person.
I would like to exist without me holding a sign going, I'm trans. Like,
hello. Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah.
So it's so funny that, it's not funny, but it's this weird thing where, like conservatives think that some trans people are just looking for, like attention or something. And that's why we do this.
Yeah.
No,
I just want to live.
Yes.
Just leave me alone.
Yeah, exactly. You're a busy parent. And, and stuff. Totally. So, so over time, have you seen? You've probably seen this town grow, I would imagine. What have you seen it? What have you seen here socially? Has it always been so red? Has it gone through like more purple phases? How about the city itself? Because sometimes cities here in the Midwest can be more purple or blue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Omaha is definitely like a blue spot on a red map.
Okay.
We are definitely like the most progressive city.
Okay.
Maybe the close rival being Lincoln, just because it's also a large like metropolitan sort of area, and with the college you get a lot of like international students. You get a lot of like diversity.
Yeah. I had a girlfriend once who went to the university in Lincoln.
Yeah.
And she said she got a lot of crap for being a vegan.
Yes.
And she wasn't even like a so-called militant vegan either. She was just a vegan.
Unfortunately,
and people were aggressive to her about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, since beef is one of like Nebraska's biggest exports, it's like a state joke to make fun of vegetarians and vegans because you don't eat meat, and don't you know how good meat is, and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, you chill. It's not that big of a deal.
Okay.
Like,
if one person doesn't want to do it, it's okay.
Yeah. But like the amount of making fun of like vegetarian establishments or stuff like that is just ridiculous. Like, absolutely uncalled for.
I bet that those would have quite the clientele here because there aren't a lot of places to go.
Yeah.
So open a vegetarian or vegan place here. Because you'd have a captive audience.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Like, and it probably doesn't help that most of, or at least a good 70% of like the vegetarian and vegan community in Omaha is part of the queer community as well.
Yes.
So
there's a lot of overlap with
there's a lot of overlap. Yes.
With artists as well.
Yes.
And independent, like kind of more independent thinking and
Yeah, we tend to all gravitate towards the same spaces.
Yeah, so, sharing and mutualism, a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Right. Yeah, so Omaha's pretty blue, all things considered.
Yeah.
And like we very much have that live and let live attitude for the most part. No one really gets in other people's business. I mean, except for like the cisheads, because honestly, who knows what they're doing over there most of the time.
So for you, you're very separate from that.
Yeah. Yeah, I am generally very uncomfortable in that sort of community.
Yeah.
Like even when I go visit my folks who live out west more, I tend to like try and downplay how obviously queer I am being in those spaces and in that area of town.
Okay. Yeah.
There's been a couple of times I've encountered people who like have treated me really badly in retail spaces or things like that. Just based on the way I look.
Like grocery store.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a beauty supply store.
Okay.
Like just,
you went in beauty supply.
Well, I gotta get the dye somewhere.
That's right.
I'm one of those people, I like to touch it with my hands before I buy it. So
okay. So you don't do the online.
Not as much.
Okay.
Not as much.
Right. Yeah. Earlier on my chair was a bag of the same color.
Yep.
And actually, I was joking because I was a teenager in the 80s, and y'all old people, you'll remember this. I got this shirt like in Europe before I moved to Texas anyway. It was a very square at the bottom, and then it had dolman sleeves, and it was that color, and it said Esprit across it. And
Classic.
It was wonderful. And I'd wear it with orange balloon pants.
There's a classic 80s color combination right there. The bright neons of opposite sides.
Oh, yeah. And if I ever had something that was, open, like you might have buttons. Right. No, it was Velcro.
Oh, absolutely.
Velcro all the way. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see you in that. I can see you in
absolutely.
that. Yeah. Let's take a break for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so we took a little break there. And I was wondering kind of, because being a parent is obviously a very important aspect of your life, probably central.
Very central.
Yeah. I don't have any kids, but I think, I think about the parents I know and their lives absolutely revolve around their children, which is wonderful. Yeah. So I was wondering about that, and being a trans person and all that sort of thing.
It's a really unique experience, I think, because I didn't start really truly questioning my gender until my kid was like a year and a half or 2 years old. It clearly started before then because pregnancy was incredibly hard on me, both physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Do you think that's maybe because you're a smaller person too?
I think so. Yeah. I had, I think it's called hypergravitosis or something like that. It's where the morning sickness is so bad that it's constant and unending, and it puts
throughout your pregnancy.
Throughout my pregnancy.
Oh my goodness!
And it puts some people in the hospital.
Right. Right, because you're not getting enough nutrition, I would think.
Right, and you get dehydrated, and it's incredibly dangerous for the fetus. So I was lucky enough that mine was it was bad, but it wasn't bad enough that I ever ended up in the hospital. But they put me on a medication for it.
Okay.
Because I was spending entire nights in the bathroom, just throwing up every 2 hours, and it was awful, and I couldn't stomach anything, and they were really worried about me staying hydrated and getting enough nutrition to actually grow this fetus.
Right.
So
that must have been really scary.
It was in a lot of ways, and I had this weird sense the entire time that it's gonna be fine, and I wasn't sure if it was delusion or just my body trying to reassure me that it was gonna be okay in the long run. But it was
it's amazing what hope can bring us through. If you have it. Yeah.
Right. And my kid was a surprise.
Oh.
It wasn't
a happy surprise.
He was a happy surprise. Yeah. He wasn't planned timing wise. We had just started talking about trying to have a kid, and then next thing you know, I'm like, it's happening now, I guess.
There you go. All right. Awesome.
So it was a welcome surprise. Yeah. So I kept throughout the pregnancy, I kept having my mom and other women in my life tell me about that pregnancy glow and how within the first 3 months are the hardest, and when you get past the morning sickness and you're gonna feel so great, and it's so there's so many great things about pregnancy and you feel so good all the time. There's a lot of polishing
going on here.
Yeah, and I was sitting there going, when is it gonna happen for me? Because I feel terrible all the time. Yes. I hate my body. I hate what's happening. This is a miserable experience. I don't understand why it's so bad for me.
Yeah, and it sounds like they're glorifying it a little bit.
Yeah,
beyond
Right, and the really confusing part was that I had another friend, a close friend of mine, who's a woman, who was pregnant about the same time.
Okay.
And she had everything that they were talking about. She had that glow, and she just felt so good about herself.
Was she a peer of yours, a friend?
Mm-hmm. Or, yeah. We've been friends for 15 years at this point, right? Mm-hmm. So I was watching her go through the pregnancy experience.
Yeah.
And have all those things happening that people would say are supposed to happen. I'm like, why don't I feel like that?
Sure.
This isn't fair. I don't understand what's happening. And the only part of pregnancy that I really enjoyed was when I would feel him kick, because it's okay, I'm actually making a human. Yes. This is pretty cool. Yeah. This is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome.
And it wasn't until after I had him that one of my other close friends came out, and I had a very sudden moment of...
Came out as trans?
Came out as a member of the trans community, right? And I had a very sudden moment of... Because they came out as non-binary.
Okay. Do they not associate that with being trans? Because some people have it under the
hit and miss
umbrella.
Yeah, they're very much in the I'm non-binary, so am I allowed to be part of the trans community sort of thing? And we talk about that a lot because I'm very clearly a binary trans person, so it's something that we've discussed heavily. Yeah, but it was about the time.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a sore spot, I feel like. I personally, I think we should all be one community.
Yeah,
and if people are uncomfortable with particular words, that's cool. That's fine. I mean, we can use different words, but no, but I don't feel like anybody has to prove.
No, there's no like not being
enough.
Trans enough to be part of the community. Like that's if you either are or you aren't. If it feels right, it's right. Like that sort of thing, right? Yeah. So it was about the time that they came out as non-binary that I suddenly realized you can be more than just, because I grew up very sheltered, right? Evangelical Christian, homeschooled.
Okay. And that's here
in Omaha, right? So very sheltered. I didn't even know that trans people existed until I was in my 20s.
Okay.
And then
was it kind of the upbringing where they didn't talk about sex or development or anything like that at all too?
Yeah, it was very much like purity culture and
virginity
and evangelical churches and like the hardcore patriarchy stuff like within churches and like dad is the leader of the household and what he says goes and like
isn't there something about like dads giving away a daughter? I forget. I don't know what that's called. But
yeah, it's like I don't remember what it's called. It's been a while.
But was that part of this?
Yeah, that was very much a part of that. Like my brothers had like entrance to manhood ceremonies when they turned like 16, where it was like a big community event sort of thing. And I was just like, well, you're a girl now. Congratulations. Like you're a woman. Good luck. Sort of thing, right?
So boys and men have kind of more mentorship, and girls are just kind of left to themselves.
We are the support, right? So we're taught to be the support to the men who get all the support. And it was a really sheltered upbringing, right? So I didn't even know that, like I knew about gay people. Yeah. But like learning
How did you know about gay people?
Little bits of media here and there, occasionally.
Did you know people protesting gay people?
No.
Okay.
I didn't. Fortunately,
that kind of went in my head. I was like,
That is the general culture that I grew up in. With like focus on the family. Like I remember seeing a flyer from them, like when Harry Potter first came out, and there was like a whole like next book is going to be Harry Potter and the homosexuals, and they're going to turn your kids gay, sort of thing, right?
Aren't they out of like Colorado?
They're out of Colorado Springs.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I was there once, and I saw a big sign for that, and so I just was wondering.
Yeah, that's where their headquarters are.
Okay.
So, like, that's what I very much grew up with. And at the same time, here I was hitting puberty as a girl, being attracted to women, and just thinking it was normal. I was like, this is what everyone does. Who wouldn't be attracted to women? Yeah. Like, yes, I'm attracted to men, but who wouldn't be attracted to women? Like, crazy, okay.
Did you have more of an androgynous look to you back then, or were
did.
you very feminine?
No, I was very tomboy.
Okay.
Except for my hair.
Okay.
Because my hair was like prized by my family, so it was long.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah, it was very part of that evangelical community sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I tried my best to be feminine, but I never felt comfortable. I like being pretty, but I didn't understand why I was never
so
comfortable,
cute.
right?
That is so cute.
And the really funny thing is,
because you're pretty now,
right? Like I am a pretty man. I will take
that.
Like,
you are.
And I would have conversations with like my friends and sometimes my mom about how like, well, if I were a guy, I'd wear my facial hair like this. Oh. And I would, in puberty, make jokes about how like, I just got a boy's brain in a girl's body. Like, oh, wow. Having no idea.
Just out there.
Okay. Not a clue.
Wow.
And no one else around me knew either.
Okay.
So it was growing up.
You
just
were
thinking,
styling your facial hair back then too, but you didn't have any, but you were thinking
long before.
Okay. Wow.
And still really adhering to like these social feminine gender roles and appearance sort of thing. And like,
it was just bursting out of you.
Yeah.
You were just like,
it really was.
Wow.
Like everywhere.
Yeah. That's cool.
So like with that sort of
flaming, as they say.
Yeah. Looking back on it now, I'm like, how did you guys not notice?
Yeah.
Really?
Really?
Like,
yeah.
So
well, they may have. Did you have any repercussions for acting that way? Or
not really.
Really? Oh, great,
no.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Weirdly, my folks were just kind of like, all right.
Okay.
The only pushback I got is when I started cutting my hair short.
Because so that was a very visible cue.
And it wasn't even like you're gonna look like a boy. It was, but your hair is so pretty. Why would you do that?
Okay.
Like, why would you give that up? It's just so pretty on you.
You
and,
poor girl.
Yeah, yeah, that sort of thing. And I think it might have been them going like, you're gonna look like a lesbian if you do that, which I did. When I first cut my hair short, I had like the Beaver cut, and I looked like There's just a little baby butch. It was just aggressive.
Okay. The Beaver Cut, is that kind of like a floppy on the front thing?
It's like a bowl cut that's kind of like flopped to one side.
Okay. I can kind of, that was, after my time, but I can kind of visualize it.
Yeah. Like 19.
It's kind of almost like a comb over a little bit.
Almost. Yeah. Kind of floppy in the eyes sort of thing.
Yeah.
Wearing like camo cargo shorts and like those belts with the rivets. Like the Hot Topic ones, right?
Sure,
and then like I've been wearing these for years.
Well, that's kind of an 80s kind of looping back.
Kind of like the roll around sort of thing. Yeah.
Yes.
So growing up sheltered like that, I thought that's just how women were.
So you were dressing like Justin Bieber and styling yourself like that, and that's just how women were.
I had no idea. Like some girls are just like this.
Okay. Wow. I bet your family was like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah, they were just like, she's gonna do what she's gonna do, I guess. Like
that's cool that there wasn't like punishment, because I know some people like are very harshly punished. And
I had some friends whose parents were like that.
Who
really came down hard on them, and my folks were generally pretty permissive.
Yeah, that's
as far as that thing is considered, and it's just for like lack of knowledge, right? So it wasn't until I was well into my 20s that I even realized that trans people existed. And it wasn't until my friend came out as non-binary that I realized you could be something besides a man or a woman, and it was mind-blowing. Yeah. Absolutely mind-blowing. Yeah. And I remember texting another friend. It sounds
like the pace of this is so rapid for you.
Once it started, it went so fast. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I remember texting a friend of mine, a queer friend of mine, in August of 2018, and being like, I think I might be gender fluid. I don't know what to do. I'm married to a cis-het man. Okay. Like, we have a small child. Yeah. What do I do? And they were very supportive. Like, if you want to tell him, great. If you don't, that's fine. Like, he loves you, and it's going to be fine either way. You'll figure it out. Did you feel like your relationship was very straight and heterosexual? I mean, like, you were very, like, there was no queerness there, Well, straight and heterosexual are kind of the same thing, but you know what I mean? Yeah. Okay. I played into those roles a lot. Okay. You played in, but there was something else there? Yeah. Even from the beginning, maybe? Even when we started seeing each other, he knew that I was bi. Like, I was very open about that. Okay. Yeah. But I played, like, the feminine role. I played the bisexual woman. I was, like the small titty bi girlfriend. Okay. Is what I was. I'm imagining like a movie. Like, this is a movie, a character. It's when I first started stepping into like punk aesthetic, right? Because I've been a punk for years at this point, like probably a couple of decades. I've always been obsessed with the aesthetic, and it wasn't until my early 20s that I really started like leaning into it. Even when you were evangelical? Yeah. I loved it. What? I loved it. I would spend hours on like... Did you like sneak out at night or something? I mean, how did you even... In my later teens, yeah. Okay. I did too, actually. But my dad works in IT. Okay. So we had computers from when they first came out. Okay. From the first like MS-DOS. Okay. Sort of Windows sort of thing. So late 70s, early 80s? Late 90s. Okay, late 90s. It was like, especially when the internet really started going. So I had... You're talking internet. Okay. Internet, yeah. Yeah, because we had early computers, but they weren't connected. Yes, like home computers. Yes. Like some of the laptops first started coming out. And like the internet was like a home thing that you could have. It was weird when people started bringing them to cafes, by the way. Yeah. It was weird. Giant things. And then they were like armored, and usually somebody was like an engineer or something like that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I had pretty much unfettered internet access. Oh, wow. Which is surprising I didn't come across trans people before then. Yeah. But that's how I knew about gay people. Okay. And that's how I knew about being queer and being like, that's where I picked up the term bisexual. And at that time, too, there was a big fight for gay rights because a lot of states were passing anti-gay laws. Yeah. So there was a lot of pushback and, a lot of fights. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I had, up until about the time I was 15, I had pretty much free reign to just do what I wanted. Okay. Online. Your upbringing is so strange. It's like it's like almost cloistered and wide open at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's so wild.
You should write a book or something. Really.
I thought about it occasionally.
Really,
It just feels like a daunting task,
Yeah, just do it chapter by chapter though, or story by story. You know what I mean? It doesn't even. They don't even have to really connect all that.
That's
much.
true.
You know?
I still have my journal somewhere. By the time I turned 11, when I forgot my first laptop that my dad gave me, I started keeping journals on my laptop, and so I have files from all the way back then. Like I have all my files.
Wow.
For probably a good 8
and
or 9
those will be
years.
your personal papers that are going to be archived at whatever university when you're very famous. I have this plan for you.
It's all mapped out.
That's right. In my head. But
Exactly.
Could happen. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So that unfettered internet access granted me a look into a lot of subcultures. Mm-hmm. I got really heavy into Tumblr in my early teens.
Okay.
So I immediately...
I don't even know what that is. Sorry.
It's okay. It's like a social media site, kind of like somewhere between Facebook and Twitter.
Okay.
But it was very more like artsy and fandom and nerds, and like that's where the queer people ended up being, and like
so
outcasts.
it wasn't like how Twitter is now, where it's like a bombardment of hatred and people pushing back on that hatred and stuff.
Yeah.
It was more closed.
It was a lot more
like
closed.
Art communities.
There was a lot of discourse,
Okay.
right? So Tumblr is kind of like if you took blogs and Twitter and put it in one.
Okay.
Right? So there's a lot of like personal stuff. There's a lot of artists. There's a lot of like people on the fringes.
Yeah.
Right?
It sounds like LiveJournal when I was in it.
Yeah. Very close to LiveJournal.
People would talk about their art practice. They would talk about their lives in a very personal way, kind of these personal essays almost every day.
Yeah.
Which is totally different than Facebook and Twitter. It's like, it's very different.
It's very close to what Tumblr was.
Okay.
Right? So I ended up in a lot of alternative subcultures, like having a glimpse into it. And that's when I first learned about like punk subculture, and I got really enamored with like tattoos and piercings and body modification. And
yeah, you have a lot of that too.
Yeah, it's been like a deep love of mine for a lot of years. As soon as I realized that you could change your body, you could have jewelry like just permanently in your face, you can change your hair color, you can do all sorts of like weird shit.
I could tell you had more piercings too.
Yeah,
I can see the remnants there.
Yep, there's a scar here from my labrae. And
yeah. Did you maybe have one up here, or?
I didn't. That's one I thought about for a long time, but with the glasses it kind of.
Oh, I see.
Since I have to wear them most of the time.
So you have like a little dent there. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's just from the nose pads.
Okay. I had one friend. He got one of those that's like in his neck or something.
Oh yeah, like a dermal.
And those I've never seen somebody actually get that and it stays.
Yeah.
It would always grow out. And it actually kind of grossed me out, I must say.
They're not for the faint of heart. I could not for the life of me. That's too much for my personal intake.
Yeah. I actually pierced my nose, the septum a long time ago, but then I lived in Alaska after that for a while, and if you have metal in your face, that's really a problem.
Yeah.
So, I mean, besides the dripping, you get dripping, but it would freeze, so.
Oh yeah, 100%.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I got really really into punk subculture.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
At probably about the time I was like 12 or 13, I was like, this is just the coolest thing I had ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And I wasn't allowed to express myself.
Were you mostly into the music, or because there's also a kind of a political edge to it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really liked the music. I was obsessed with like the aesthetic and like the fashion and like the old school, like the 80s punks.
Yes.
And
I was an 80s punk.
yeah, I was really into it.
Okay.
So after I left home at 18, I think within a year I had my first mohawk.
Okay.
And like this is number 6 probably at this point. I've gone through so many reincarnations of a mohawk at this point, and it's just like it feels like home. Like, out of all the hair I've ever had in my life, this one feels like home.
Yeah.
That's what I keep coming back to.
Yeah,
and so,
it's
like,
nice. It's cool too that you, even on testosterone, you're keeping that. That's cool.
I like it a lot. It just feels, I don't know, comfortable in a way nothing else ever has. That's why I've really, I've wondered sometimes if I'm just like clinging to an aesthetic for nostalgia's sake, but I keep coming back to it. Like I've tried other things, and I've tried.
Well, people have been saying punk is dead for forever.
Exactly.
They've been saying it since the 70s. So
It's not dead. We're just tired.
Yeah, we just get old, or
we're parents.
Some people are parents. Some people can't go out to the shows all the time. But,
Exactly.
I mean, look at Patti Smith. She's still doing it.
Oh yeah, 100%.
She's in fact leading the culture in some ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I used to go to a lot of punk shows and also a lot of political stuff. There was a lot of queer and punk kind of overlap.
Yeah.
You know, and then there was like the Nazi skinheads. You know,
Right.
so that was the, you know,
Right.
that was horrible.
Yes.
But we also had a very strong queer and arts and punk culture.
Yeah, it's the same way here in Omaha.
Yeah.
There's unfortunately a pretty significant faction of like Proud Boys here. So
And that's kind of like the new neo-Nazi
Yeah.
people or whatever. Yeah.
basically. And they're in a lot of alt subcultures as well, unfortunately. So like,
Could you speak up a little bit?
yeah, absolutely. So like in my
Do you ever
late
encounter
teens,
them like out?
Not as much anymore.
Because sometimes they go to events, right? I mean,
Yeah, there's been a couple rallies and stuff, especially in 2020 when things were really like shit was hitting the fan with George Floyd, and there were protests here in Omaha where a young man got killed, and like it was on national news, and it was a whole thing. And I tend not to go to that stuff myself, just because I have a kid, and I have to be very careful.
yeah, you have to have
now,
your
like-
priorities. And
Yeah.
also as a trans person, it becomes more dangerous.
It does.
Yeah,
And it does. And I've felt a lot of guilt for not being able to like actively engage with that kind of stuff, right? Because I want to. But I have to be conscious about my kid and my own like personal safety. And I talk a lot with other queer people in my life about how visibility is activism. Just the act of existing is resistance.
That's right. Especially in a place like this.
Especially in a place like this. Just openly and boldly being queer and trans in a way that other people can see.
Yeah. And also being a parent.
Exactly.
You know,
like we're not just all kids. Some of us have like full-time jobs. I work in a dental lab.
You go.
I make crowns and bridges for a living.
Oh, awesome. I love that.
We're just
so you're
regular
kind of a
people.
sculptor too.
I am kind of a sculptor too. Yeah.
That's great.
So like this whole concept that like we're just regular people, and just to be a queer trans person, just existing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I take my kid to school.
But
I go
you're
to work,
definitely not
I'm like,
assimilationist though.
No.
Right? There's that whole other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not trying to like blend in by any means.
No.
And
Which is fabulous, which is great. I love that.
I have much too.
So you're taking care of the bills and you're taking care of your kid and you're also
Exactly.
doing whatever you want.
Exactly. I have, to many people's dismay in my life, refused to conform
Yeah.
to pretty much anything.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Especially to my parents' dismay. I will do what I want to do, and you really can't stop me.
Speaking of that, what's your relationship now? Because you're, you know, trans man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's decent, all things considered.
Is there like a lot of love there? Like that's the base and you can go from there?
Kind of. Kind of.
Okay. Do you want to start over with that? Is
Yeah.
That, okay.
Yeah, let me...
Maybe think about that for a second.
Okay, so with my family, we're pretty good, all things considered.
Yeah.
I've been out to my parents for about a year and a half at this point.
Are they evangelical still?
Not so much.
Okay.
I think my dad might be. We really don't talk a whole lot, to be honest. My dad and I are not super close. My mom, interestingly enough, over the last several years has stopped calling herself a Christian and has embraced God as like an entirely different unconditional love sort of being.
Yes.
Like really expanded her horizons, and
Wow,
like
that's
she's
revolutionary.
learning like true open-minded, like true tolerance and not even tolerance, but like acceptance.
How did that
of
happen?
everyone.
Maybe because of you?
I think I might have had a part in it.
Yeah, I have a feeling about that.
Like,
Are you? I'm sorry if this
go
is too
ahead.
personal. Are you more close to her? Have you had a lot of discussions with her about this?
I'm definitely closer to her than I was.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of years not estranged necessarily, but distant.
Okay.
Very
just
distant.
not talking about the nitty gritty stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I left home when I was 18.
Okay.
Right? And it was not necessarily on good terms. It was one of those, like, my parents were doing their best, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes someone's best is not good enough.
Sure.
And I was...
And you sound like you value your freedom.
Very much so.
Contrarian, yes.
Yeah, very much so. And I was learning things about myself as like a queer person.
Right.
And someone who no longer believed in the God that I was brought up with, and who wasn't comfortable conforming to like the family standards, and was bucking and fighting against all of them. And I think in an act of desperation, my parents gave me like an ultimatum of shape up or you can't live here.
Oh no.
And I said, okay, I'm out.
When I don't know, when do ultimatums ever work?
I don't know why they thought it would work, honestly.
No, I mean,
given my track record.
They know you. They know you. So how would they think that would work? I don't know.
I think they thought that maybe like the seriousness of
okay.
leaving home.
Sure. Like economic trouble and
right. I had like a part-time job, right? I was in college. Like,
oh yeah.
I've never lived anywhere else but home before. And like my family is that like kind of cloister idea.
Yeah.
Is we're very tight knit, right?
Yeah.
So the idea of living home was devastating.
Yeah.
But I also like looked at this ultimatum and looked at my life up until that point and went, I can't do this anymore. Like I have no choice.
Right.
I have to leave.
Yeah.
So I left. And I spent the next 8 years learning to like take care of myself and like through a multitude of like couch surfing, and I slept in my car sometimes, and like little part-time jobs here and there. And
if you don't have family support and you're that young, even though you're an adult, in this society right now, if you're, in your teens, even if it's the late teens, it is so difficult because it's so expensive. There's so many financial things you have to think about, like credit and, all the subscriptions that we have now, everything, all the bills. It's very tough.
Grew up so sheltered that I didn't really learn a lot of the like nitty-gritty stuff about being an adult.
Because you weren't taught that because you were a female.
Right, because I was raised in that evangelical, like it was very much the culture of like you don't date, you court, and then you court someone until you get married, and then your dad hands you off to this other man, and then you don't ever have to like deal with any of that stuff.
It's almost like you're not a person.
Very much so.